Hey, friend, are you feeling overwhelmed by emotions, especially in parenting, marriage, or work? Then listen up. I love helping women learn and implement powerful emotional management tools in a small group environment so they can handle everyday feelings with more calm, more clarity, and more confidence. It's called the Emotional Confidence Club. And right now, we're open to new members. If you're ready for more peace and less stress in your life, apply now for the Emotional Confidence Club at aliciamichelle.com/club. Hey there, welcome to today's episode of The Christian Mindset Coach with me, Alicia Michelle. This episode is coming out during a time of year where we're traveling. A lot of us, it's summer, we're experiencing fun with our family, maybe going to those places that we've always wanted to go to. Maybe a dream trip is on the horizon. And in light of that, I wanted to talk about something that has been coming up in me for years, but I wasn't really able to figure it out until about a year and a half ago when I traveled to Italy and found, oh, that's what this is, the feelings that I was feeling. And that is the idea of the vacation joy stealers, like the feelings of disappointment and frustration. And is this it? Especially around photos and photo shaming ourselves, body image, like all of this weird vacation related emotions come up. I never really knew what that was about. I just knew that there was this level of tension in me that happened when I traveled. Have you felt this before where you're like, why do I feel on edge right now? I'm on vacation. Enjoy yourself. Why is it so hard to just relax and enjoy, especially when we are on these trips where we have been planning them for a while? If you've ever thought things like this, I thought it was prettier in the photos, or I thought this would be a stress-free, relaxing vacation, or is that really what I look like in that picture? All of those things, this is a sign that you are dealing with the emotions that can find us that are unique on vacations, and especially these grandiose things we plan. It's that "is this it" feeling. A funny story happened regarding this. It's been, gosh, at least 10 to 12 years ago. Actually, I can tell you how long it's been. It's been 13 years because my youngest son was only 8 weeks old when this happened. But we had the opportunity to go to Hawaii as a family. He was either going to be 8 weeks or when my son was a year and a half. And I thought I'd rather have a newborn versus a toddler just learning to walk and getting into everything. So we decided, okay, let's do this. Let's take all of our kids, all four of our kids. My oldest was only 12 at the time. So he was 10. So the ages were 10, 8, 5, and newborn. And we had this great condo rented in Hawaii, and we were all excited. We got the kids all excited. We got to Kauai and we were all sick. And I don't mean like sick, just, oh, we all didn't feel good. No, we all had the flu. Like we were sick in bed. The weather outside was horrible. It was pouring rain, so much so that when one day everyone was actually feeling a little better because we were there for a week, I think this was like day 5, we decided to venture out. It was so bad that they were closing roads on the island and were like, you can't even go over here because the roads are so bad, they're washed out from the rain. And we were like, gosh. So we had one day out of that whole trip where everybody felt well enough and the weather cooperated, at least for part of the day, where we could go out and see the beach. We could see some of the sights. It was crazy. We had these huge expectations going into it. And I remember just feeling, oh my gosh, I was so angry and so disappointed. It's funny to think about now, but back then when we were going through it, I was a young mom with a lot of kids. I think I also had the expectation that this was going to be a relaxing trip for me. Oh, it's never relaxing, even when you're traveling with young kids. Now, don't get me wrong, you can have moments of peace, but you are still a mom. You're still traveling and looking after these young people, helping them develop their character, responding to their needs. At this point, I was nursing a baby all night. I don't know what I was thinking in my head. I had visions of all of us holding hands, walking on the beach in Hawaii, all smiling and happy and nobody needing anything. And then me sitting in a corner journaling while they all played in the sand. Let's just say it didn't happen. So that was a situation for me that I just felt so overwhelmed and confused. And it just felt like afterwards, that was a joke. That was one of the first times I really began to start to go, what is this about? So, this episode specifically started a little over a year ago when I went to Lake Como in Italy, which is stupendous. You may have heard of Lake Como. It's where George Clooney has his multi-million dollar mansion. It's the place in Europe to go to relax. It's one of the most romantic places in the world. It's one of the top places to get engaged. Bellagio specifically, which is where I was. I remember seeing 6 couples get engaged in front of me. It was really crazy. But that's where, when I was on that trip, I began realizing and God began working through with me the shame and the disappointment that was stealing the gift of what this vacation was. I am going to read to you a post that I put out during that trip. I don't have the ability to show you the image, but you can go back to my feed. In fact, I'll probably repost it when we post this episode so that you can see the image. But it got such a huge response. And it really helped me to solidify in my heart, this is a huge issue for us as women. And we need to be talking about this. Here is the text of what was in that post. There's a picture of me here where I am on one of the most famous streets in Italy, in Bellagio at least. This is a photo that was in my deleted part of my photos because I hated this photo of me. I felt like my body looked weird in this outfit. I remember just looking at this photo and shaming myself and being like, whoa. And then here's what's happened. I'll read to you what the copy says. The dark side of vacation photos. They're often a breeding ground for judgment, comparison, and general hatefulness towards our bodies. We see others' pictures and we think, that's what I want to look like, but are disappointed when we don't. Our eyes zero in on our flabby belly, big nose, too tight jeans, and pudgy arms, and suddenly we feel woefully inadequate. And it can happen every single time we take a picture. If we're not careful, the wonderful vacation moments can be clouded over with comparison, jealousy, and all sorts of joy-stealing thought patterns. Can we just admit that we struggle with this? Can we just confess that our bodies are imperfect, but that they are still good? Can we praise our Creator for our health? Can we thank Him for the strength and the finances it takes to travel and to capture these amazing moments? Can we just call out the enemy for his lies instead of beating ourselves up? Today was the day that God called me out on this. He reminded me that the goal isn't to capture a perfect version of myself in these photos, but simply to capture a moment in time, even if that means capturing sweaty hair, arm pudgies, imperfect lighting, and squinty eyes. When did we stop giving ourselves a break for just being who we are in a given moment? We don't do it to others. Let's choose to stop doing it to ourselves. And then P.S., I deliberately picked a photo from my deleted photos. I do not like this photo. And so God challenged me to post it as a way to make this point. Yes, you can still feel like you're taking, quote, ugly photos, even in one of the most Instagram-worthy places on earth. P.P.S. This is also not a plea for others to tell me how beautiful I am, no matter what the pic looks like, etc. I'm just being transparent about this struggle, and I'm wanting to let you know that you're not alone if you struggle with this. Oh my gosh, the comments that I got back from this were crazy. It was, thank you so much for saying this. I feel this every time I go on vacation. Wow, this is exactly what I think to myself every time I take a photo. This is why I don't take photos. It was crazy, all that came back from it. So that's why I wanted to share that with you and talk about these issues today. I have felt this feeling in other amazing places. It's not the place itself, all kinds of places. I've also felt this feeling, not even necessarily about my body, but about when I go to that place. If you have idealized this place your whole life, like seeing the Eiffel Tower, for example, you're like, I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower. And then you get there and you're like, Hey there, it's Alicia. Do you love the science and scripture based tools that we talk about here on the show, but want some accountability and practical help applying these principles to your life? Well, then you're invited to apply for the Emotional Confidence Club. I like to think of the club as the lab where we implement the tools that we talk about here and in my book, Emotional Confidence. Imagine having the chance to interact with me live every week as you practice the 7 emotional management tools in our roadmap to help you manage emotions like fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, and more. I love watching the lives of the women in the club transform in incredible ways, moving from overwhelmed and frustrated to calm and confident. You too can learn how to make these truths applicable to your situations and find emotional peace despite life's ongoing stress. Right now, we are welcoming in new members, but it is by application only. Does this sort of accountability, growth, and caring support as you apply these tools to your life, does that sound good to you? Then apply now for the Emotional Confidence Club at aliciamichelle.com/club. That's aliciamichelle.com/club. Okay, that's cool. But in your dreams, you had this imagined whole story and picture behind it. All of these things that are stealing from the moment. And I think whether that's brought to us by these stories we see on Instagram or travelogue videos, things like that, we can just idealize in our head not only the place itself, but how we would feel in that moment, what the lighting would be like. But guess what? It was so crowded, we couldn't even see the Eiffel Tower. It was raining that day and we couldn't go out and visit it. Or I felt sick that day and I couldn't go. Or my son was having a temper tantrum, or my teen was being pouty the whole time and it ruined the mood for everybody. These are the real things that happen on vacations and it can really derail us. Let's talk about some expectation traps that fuel this dialogue in our heads. Some of the things we think this trip will fix how I feel about myself, how I feel about my marriage. It will fill me up with this thing that I've been longing for. Let's use the example of the Eiffel Tower. If I get to the Eiffel Tower, then I will be like, oh my gosh, my life is complete. We can have that expectation. We talked about unrealistic expectations a few episodes ago. So you can listen to that episode if that is something you struggle with. It can show up on vacations too. That's one expectation trap. Another one is I have to enjoy every second of this vacation. I struggle with this a lot because we think, all right, I need to be fully present. I need to be joyful, but maybe you're on your period that week, or you just had food poisoning, or it's upsetting your stomach and you can't try that amazing dish you really wanted to try because you don't feel good that day. Maybe someone in your family is sick and you didn't get to go on that excursion because you were home taking care of them in the hotel room. We don't have to enjoy every second for the trip to be good. We can give space for there to be imperfect moments, for there to be human moments, and still have an amazing trip. Here's another one that gets me. If this isn't magical, whatever magical means, who knows, right? If it isn't magical, then I've wasted my time and money. Have you ever felt this? This is especially true for those big trips that cost a lot of money for all of us to be here. I'm taking off 2 weeks of work and I've been saving for this for 5 years. We have to be super careful of this. This is something that even I am planning this trip to Italy, as if you're listening to this in the summer of 2025, a retreat for Christian women in Italy in September of 2025. Super excited about it, but I have to continually check my expectations. I have to be realistic that I am going to be a human. I'm going to show up and we have incredible plans, like seriously awesome things that we're going to be doing. And I have amazing things that God has given me to teach these women. But I also realize that I am an imperfect person and the people going are imperfect. There may be little hiccups in the trip. I don't expect huge things to happen. Perfect isn't the goal. Being present to the reality of whatever God gives, that's my goal. Being able to serve the women who are there and the men, there are a few spouses who are coming, being able to serve them well, that's my goal. Being able to enjoy the moments with my daughter who's going to be there for the first time, that's the goal. It doesn't have to be every moment is perfect. It just means that I'm aiming for the good and leaving space for God to do what he wants to do. There's also some other emotional pressure cookers that I want us to be aware of why we can feel these burdens, these joy stealers, these disappointments during travel time. Travel disrupts our sleep. Can we just be honest about that? It disrupts our food routines. If we don't get enough sleep, we're not getting enough water. Maybe we sat on a plane next to somebody who was crowding the seat and it was not a good situation for 12 hours. We can get off the plane and feel like junk. Maybe our flight lost our luggage. Who knows? There could be different family dynamics, extra expenses that we weren't expecting to happen. This is often true in terms of the family dynamics. This can be true of big family trips. If you go to Disneyland or Disney World, you always see people walking around in shirts like the Jones Family Vacation 2024. I always think, well, that's awesome that everyone can travel together and you'll have this big extended family and grandma and grandpa and you got aunt and uncle and everybody's all there. And yet I'm like, oh, you got grandma and grandpa and your aunt and uncle and everybody's all there. And you're at this place where you're supposed to be the happiest place on earth. And not everybody's getting along because so-and-so wants to go on Space Mountain and the other ones don't want to go in the teacups. And I don't want to eat at that place because that place made me sick. And oh my gosh, right? All the things that can come up when we have extended family together. So how can we prepare ourselves for these sort of vacation moments where we want to minimize this type of emotional overwhelm? What can we do to help ourselves? I think it starts by preparing ourselves emotionally, being honest with ourselves before we go on a trip. For me now, this trip to Italy being only a few months away, I'm trying to emotionally prepare myself. These are the sorts of things we can ask ourselves to keep ourselves in the right headspace and to prepare. 3 questions. And then I want to also talk about how to handle it if this does come up, the emotional overwhelm. So, questions to prepare before we go. Number 1, what are our fears or expectations? Being honest about that. And then saying, is that realistic? Second question, what emotional needs are you hoping the trip will meet? It's not bad to say that this trip will meet a need for this expectation in the relationship or this feeling in myself. For example, I had the chance to visit a concentration camp when we traveled to Germany last year. And I had always wanted to see that firsthand. I've always been fascinated by World War II history. I got to walk through Dachau and see the horror that happened there. I had the expectation that this would allow me to offer tribute and healing for those who I know who have loved ones who have been lost, for my relatives who served in World War II, who helped free some of those people in the camps. It was just an important aspect of my journey as a person. It meant that I had a chance to grieve and experience that emotional part of it. And it made me want to delve even deeper into World War II history. So that's not a bad expectation. That wasn't a bad emotional need, but we just have to be careful. This trip to Italy with my daughter, my prayer is that we will have a closer relationship, even walking away. We have a good relationship now, but my prayer is that as we do these very unique experiences together, as we even do some additional travel beyond our retreat time, that she and I will grow closer, that we will have these amazing memories. But I have to be careful as I'm thinking that, what emotional needs am I hoping the trip will meet? That's a good need to have a closer relationship with her and grow deeper. But I also don't want to feel like we're going to be in perfect harmony the entire time, right? So having some reality checks on it. And then this third question, which is what we're going to dig into in the final part here, is how will you ground yourself when things don't go as planned? What are you going to do when and if the unexpected comes up? You lose your luggage, you have someone steal your credit card, that tour that you were supposed to take gets rained out, you realize you have to come home early because somebody is sick. Here's how to handle it. I want to use the tool that I teach in my book, Emotional Confidence, and what we teach in the Emotional Confidence Club. And that is called A.D.D. It's the A.D.D method that I created to help us in a very practical way use the ways that our brain works and the ways our mind operates when we go through an emotion, along with an opportunity to connect with God, to process the emotion in a way that's not going to let the emotion take over, but it's going to let truth balance the feeling and for us to make a wise decision moving forward. So let's use that model. ADD, if you have not heard of it before, it stands for acknowledge, discern, and decide. And again, I'm just going to be able to touch on it quickly here. If you want to learn more about ADD, the Emotional Confidence book is all about ADD. We go really deep into this. We apply it to specific emotions. We talk about the science behind it. So much more evidence and information about ADD in that book. So I invite you to check that out. You can get the book Emotional Confidence anywhere books are sold. Amazon is great. It's at many Targets right now. So check it out. But here is that ADD framework if we were to apply it to some of the emotions that we feel in travel. Step one is to acknowledge, what am I feeling? What's rising up in me right now? And we're doing that without shaming ourselves. We're just looking at it and seeing why it's plausible that we're feeling like this. Some questions we can ask to help this come out would be, what did I expect this experience to feel like? Am I letting a few hard moments define the whole experience? What do I need emotionally right now? How can I give myself permission to receive that? How can I give myself permission to receive the compassion from God for how I look in this photo? What just happened that's going to keep us from finishing our trip the way we wanted, or the argument I had with my spouse that I wasn't expecting to have? So that is acknowledged. That's that first step. It makes sense of feeling this way because step two is to discern. And this is where we're saying it's true that, but it's not true that. What is unrealistic? What is unfair? What's been distorted by our own frustrations or the lies that we have in our head, the filters that we've put on this? For example, would I speak to a friend the way I'm speaking to myself right now? Is this how I know God feels about me? I think of the example of the vacation photo thing when I think of that one. Am I asking this trip or this moment to meet an emotional need that's unrealistic or one that only God can fill? Is this trip, this feeling that I'm having, the disappointment, the up and down emotions, is it something that's true? Is it not true? We can sometimes jump to these conclusions like we're letting our husband down because we had to stay in for the whole day and we couldn't take that tour we wanted to do, or we couldn't explore that place because we felt hurt. One example that I think of, a few years ago, we went to Disney World for the first time. And 2 weeks before, I injured my back so badly. It was awful. I had to be taken away in an ambulance, but I knew I had this big trip with my kids and we'd plan this whole thing. And so it was up and down. Do I go? Do I not go? I ended up going, but I went 3 days later to give myself an extra few days to rest. I got a little scooter. So I had my little motorized scooter going around. That was how I dealt with the feeling of I've let my family down. I'm not there for them. I can't do this. And there were still a few moments where I can't go on that ride or I can't help them in this way because I'm in this scooter. But I had to be aware of that and I had to let that truth of that's not what God has allowed me to be here. I am not going to feel like a failure because I wasn't perfect in this situation. Discerning what's true and what's not true about the situation. Step three is to decide, how can I respond in a way that honors the feeling that I'm having, but also tempering that feeling with truth, with the reality of what God says and what is in my control and what God wants me to do next. So asking ourselves, what does God want me to do with this? What is he trying to show me in this moment? What action can I take? If it's an internal battle of how we're viewing the moment, how we're viewing our body, how can I change this dialogue? How can I let go of the things about myself that I can't really change right now, or the things that I might be able to change in this moment? There's nothing I can do about it. How can I make a decision to honor that and to let go of things and to trust the Lord for him to work out these things? How can I lean into him to meet the needs that I'm feeling, where I'm feeling broken, where I'm feeling not enough? What is that we need to hear from God, or we need to give up, or what action do we need to take in order to bring resolution to this situation? All right. So this kind of stuff, it's real. It's important. It's stuff that is not easy to process. These are the kind of things that we work through in the Emotional Confidence Club. At the time of this recording, at least, which is beginning of July, we are closed to new people in the Emotional Confidence Club. We will open up again at the end of August. We have 6-week periods where we go deep on a topic together, and then the last 2 weeks of that second month, we open it up to new people. Wanting other women to go deep in these important emotional topics that we all face, like dealing with our emotions while we're traveling. If that's interesting to you, you can still apply and get on the wait list for the next time we open. To do that, go to aliciamichelle.com/club and you will fill out the application there. Again, it's only a few questions, takes a few seconds, and we'll get back to you about how to do that process. I hope this was encouraging to you. If you want to talk to me more about this, reach out to me on Instagram. You can send me a DM. I love it when people do that. I love having deeper conversations about what we talk about here in the episode, and I promise to respond. So reach out to me. It's at Alicia Michelle Coach on Instagram or Facebook, either place. Would love to talk to you more about this and help you find some clarity if this has come up for you, or just even to say, I've had this come up over and over. Thank you for talking about it. I would just love to hear your response. All right, friends, take care. I'll see you back here for next week's episode. Bye-bye.